This is day 3 of the February 91 7-day retreat at Springwater. Here are some of the new notes I have. Please talk about being with and being aware of thoughts and feelings which seem or are destructive or antisocial. Are there suggestions which you may give for being more open so that one may thoroughly air out such experience? I have found very few people with whom I could beneficially discuss this, as there is usually a wall of resistance. And this seems to make it harder for me to be fully open to awareness within my own mind. Further, please talk about evil. It seems especially appropriate with a war going on. I am afraid that the state of open listening that happens in retreat will disappear in the chaos of my daily life. Recently, I spent some time in a crisis situation with my family where I had to do everything. There was no one else to do the work, and there was no choice to do something else. Every moment of the day, I had to do something without any choice to do something else or someone else to do it. There was a calm in that whole situation, a change from my usual dithering of what I should or should not do next. This came up in a group discussion, this question, the previous and this. Do we, in our normal way of living, with its many choices to do this and not to do that, or to let someone else do it, do we miss the crisis in each moment, which is the crisis of inattention, with its choices for gratification, pleasure, procrastination, and so forth? I can tell that when you talk that you are concentrated. I cannot understand why you separate concentration from awareness. I'm amazed to find that the whole self-me structure can indeed move aside. And that when that happens, one can be with and act in a situation which before seemed so completely intolerable. This action, when the me structure is not in the way, I have found to be without any effort or choice. And there was a question yesterday, which we didn't go into, and since this whole problem of discontent has come up again, let's read it again, and maybe that's where we start, talking about discontent. Does discontent reveal itself as one is sitting quietly? It is probably there during most of one's daily life, but now sitting quietly, it becomes much more noticeable. I'm also wondering whether there is fear in discontent. There's lots to cover, but we can only start with one thing. And not try to get it over with to get to the next thing, but really completely go into this one thing of discontent right now, which is so much present in our life, as the one person expressed it. And then when it comes up in a sitting, maybe it just reveals itself more clearly. Not that sitting brings discontent, but it reveals the discontent prevalent in our life. What do we mean when we speak of discontent? We each have to look ourselves, don't we? Not just listen to what someone else says. We have to look, because it concerns our life, our own life, and our interrelationship with each other, which so often is marked with discontent. Discontent with the other, discontent with oneself, with a situation, with one's job, one's way of living, one's family. Why? What feeds it? What brings it about? What sustains and maintains it? If I weren't thinking, and I'm not saying I shouldn't be thinking, I'm just taking hypothetically, if I were not thinking about another situation, another partner, another family, another work situation, but there was just what was there, and that was entered into, not out of any principle, but because it's there right before one, to be done, to be seen, then would there be discontent? It connects with just what we read before, a person saying, I found with this me structure moving out of the way, which indeed it can do. I was amazed at it, but it can do that. The most intolerable situation previously could be entered into and cease to be a problem. And working in it, being with the people, had not this quality of making an effort. Probably because there was no resistance to it, because effort and resistance are wedded. When there's resistance, I have to make effort. I make effort because I anticipate resistance or feel it. So I try to plow through this resistance. In myself, or the resistance I feel in other people. I raise my voice or use more intense gestures or action, trying to plow through my own, yours, or our common resistance. Does that leave me discontented, having to do that again and again? Working through my resistances, or being hemmed in by them, like by barbed wire. But we started out asking, is it that I can think about better situations, that the feeling of discontent comes into being. It can be all taking place in the video room, in the brain. Comparing myself to other people, what better situations, families, partners, jobs they have. Comparing my situation, my job, my partner. It doesn't look favorable, the comparison comes out lopsided. I am on the lower end of the scale, and discontent takes place. Feeling discontent having ingredients, doesn't it? It's not just a thing. There's envy in it, frustration, anger, resentment. Maybe wanting to lash out of frustration, verbally or physically. Or just eating it all down, shoving it, as one person put it. And then the thing continuing to fester. Maybe underneath the surface, because I have an image that I should be contented with the way I am, with the way things are. I should get with it, be one with it. That image may be strong, have powerful value, maybe from the past, and therefore I don't acknowledge. I can't really get one with it. I hate what I'm doing, or I'm not contented. I am resentful. Resentful of others having freedom that I don't have, having opportunities that I don't have. Maybe it's true. On what scale we would have to look at, and we would have to live with these other people too, to find out if the circumstances of their life, the different partner, situation, job, family, money, whatever, whether that gives rise to contentment. And what that contentment is that a deep at peace, being at peace, not in conflict, not in contradiction. Or it's very temporary before it flips into discontent again, because someone else says the comparing mind has more, has better, has less. As long as that program in the mind is at work, there is no end to its applications. It doesn't matter where one finds oneself, does it? Please look for yourself, for myself. I'm not trying to brainwash or persuade people into contentment. Actually, the person who talked about that me structure moving out of the way didn't say, I'm now contented. It was not the way it was put. It was put that, to one's amazement, working and acting and interrelating without that structure in a way is without effort. Free. Without resentment. Without getting caught up in the moods of the people surrounding one. And that too may not be a permanent situation. Nothing is permanent. Things change. me structure is right there in the driver's seat when there's closedness, inattention. And what comes first, who knows? A thought comes up about myself, boy, now I really have this licked. And there's me with an image and how good I am and the comparison to others. And that draws the curtain. It gets narrow and dark when image comes up and is not immediately seen. When it's seen, it can dissipate very quickly. When it's not seen, it operates, as it has operated for thousands of years in human beings, not just in me or you, in everyone. The brain is the most prolific image-producing mechanism for everything and everyone and every situation. Every new situation can become an image and lose its aliveness and become manipulatable, comparable to other situations. It can happen so quick and facile. With a brain that is equipped to manipulate in that way. The person asked whether it wasn't just a question outwardly, it was an inward question. Is there fear involved in this discontent, this chronic discontent one feels? Is there fear? Is there? Fear of not being what one thinks one ought to be. Fear of not being what one's parents would like one to be, because this is how we all started out, getting our values. Our parents put them right out. And if they didn't put them right on, we could sense them. Little children don't need words to sense what pleases their parents, what makes them smile and happy if one brings home good report cards. One becomes the president of the class or brings home honors. I'm not saying all parents are like that, but I've gone through it myself. I remember when Ralph came home from kindergarten, he had a little paper pinned to his lapel and it said, "Best rester." They had to lie down in between playing, and the one who did it the best maybe squawked around the least and didn't make a nuisance of himself, got this little best rester badge. Well, he had something. He was good. I felt good. What's the fear? We were looking at what is the fear, hidden or concealed or in this discontent. Fear of never making it, never finding one's place, doing what one would love to do, living up to one's potential. That goes along with praise and blame that we have imbibed socially. Making progress is highly rewarded, regarded. Climbing ladders in the business, the industrial, the military, the political, and the religious life. We're all supposed to climb. We're expected to progress. We've imbibed that. from the start of being perceptive what goes on, how people reward each other and how people are admired, praised, rewarded. Is there a fear of not coming up to the expectations of that program? Or is there fear that one will never be contented? That something will forever elude one? One will forever live in this semi-state. What would contentment be? Is that what one is seeking? Contentment out of discontent? Is there an image of being satisfied all the time? Which is probably a sheer illusion of being satisfied all the time, contented all the time. It's impossible, we talked about it. The brain can project something better, more efficient, more gratifying. I remember reading once in Krishnamurti that discontent or discontentment is a flame, and not to try to put that out, replace it with contentment, but allow that flame of discontentment to burn. That makes sense, doesn't it? Because if it's out, if there's contentment, then we can just move from contentment to discontentment, contentment, discontentment. Or we go to sleep. Go to sleep. There's no more to be gotten. We've got it all. I don't know whether that state is possible. There is a rhythm from being discontented again to wanting and having satisfaction for a while and so forth. But this flame of discontentment is an interesting way of looking at it, isn't it? To keep that alive, not to get it fueling one's drive for contentment, but to wonder about the whole thing of contentment and satisfaction and gratification and wanting and comparing. To wonder about this whole feel of lack that seems to be built into our conditioned structure. Of me, my needs, my wants, my fears, my resentments, my progress, my fulfillments. And built into that, always a feeling of lack or separation, isolation, because the more progress we make, the more others are going to envy us for it. Or feel left behind, feel shut out, or stepped on. And maybe those who were our friends now become adversaries, or they withdraw. Is that the only lack, the isolation of going for progress driven by discontent? Basically, deep down, what's the discontent? Someone said this morning, I've always suffered from loneliness, always felt lonely, but I never realized that I am alone. What does that mean, I'm alone? Does that mean not dependent? On anything or anyone for garnering satisfaction, fulfillment? One can build oneself a niche like that, and we have done it, building ourselves a niche of aloneness, maybe monastic aloneness, or the aloneness of a hermit, not dependent on anyone, or at least so one may think or hope. Aloneness to me means all oneness, no separation, and yet no need to fuel a sense of satisfaction from others. Or from the environment. Is that utopian? Is it just an illusion? It can't happen as long as there is this deep attachment to this whole me structure. With that comes the feeling of loneliness, of lack, of discontent, and needing to tackle that in ways that don't tackle it, in ways that assuage and then bring more of the same. This endless cycle. And the question is whether that cycle can break. Of discontent turning into content and turning into discontent. One has to find out, doesn't one? No words of holding out hope that it can or it can't, it's an illusion. That's all. Doesn't have much meaning. Someone said that, to my amazement, this whole structure of me can move aside, not be in the way. And then what appeared so intolerable is that no longer. And the effort of resistance is gone. What needs to be done is done. The energy to do it is there. Because the energy is not tied up in this me structure. that wants and discontents and yearns and frustrates and resents and climbs and falls. Maybe in that there is also no fear when this structure is out of the way. Because when there's fear, we're always fearing for me, don't we? Is there any fear that's not for me? Or what I am identified with and clinging to desperately, tenaciously. There can be tremendous fear of this war going on. But if one follows the fear without getting caught up in ideals or cliches or images, how one should be or is or isn't, if one follows this fear, what is one afraid for? I heard on television once over the news, 2 little children calling a hotline which has been established someplace for children in deep anxiety over the war, so that they can call somebody up and talk. And they had the child and the operator there. Maybe it was all staged, who knows. But one child said, "Will my mommy and daddy be called up into the reserves or have to go to war?" And the other one said, "Will one of those Scud missiles reach Hollywood because this is where I live?" Right, honest, I'm afraid for my house, my family, my mom and dad, and of course myself. Because when my mom and dad isn't there, who's going to take care of me? Is one afraid for the further incredible pollution, whether it's maneuvers or testing or the actual firing, the killing of people and the pollution of the earth, oil slicks, smoke, waste. Afraid that this earth will be more and more devastated, let alone the people. Does one have to meet this with fear? Fear means I don't want this to happen. I'm afraid of it. I don't want it to change. It's me that is being devastated. Or can it all be seen and felt and observed without fear? But with great sadness. And maybe with an energy to do something that comes out of no self-concern, no self-fear. To see how it comes to all of this in oneself, in each other, and see if it can take an end in ourselves. Not wait for the ceasefire, which may never come. But can there be resolution in oneself of antagonism, resentment, fear, discontent? Not through suppression or more adhering to moral principles or pasting new images on old ones that are worn out. understanding this whole structure of me, with its loneliness, its resentments, its fears, discontent, and the reaction that comes from that. All built in. It's all in there. Inseparable from that structure. That's what that structure is. It's me. It's interesting in the group discussion here, hearing one person say, I just was in a crisis, called into a crisis situation, my family. I had to do everything. I couldn't push it on to anybody else. No one else to do it. I had to do something every moment. And the energy was there, and with that there was a calm. One would have to look, was that a gratified self that it could now serve, be of help, or was there just the clarity of seeing what needed to be done? Because this is what crises bring about. Great clarity and great energy to do what needs to be done, without choice. And then the question that came from that, why can't we see the crisis of this moment of living in ourselves? Not the badness in us, it has nothing to do with that, but what is operating? What keeps us enclosed, separate, lonely, reactive? So quick to create an enemy. So quick to lash out of anger, fear, resentment, discontent, which may all be not just of this day or this month or year, it may be buried deep in the past. Which is also here. It's our private and collective memory, which is here. It's not someplace else or sometime else. It's operating here. It's part of the structure which can move out of the way. Not partially this part or that, but the whole thing. Does this become an ideal to strive for? That's striving for something is part of the structure. Creating ideals is also part of it. We talked about that in the beginning. The ideal of ultimate contentment. Is there anything that's not of this structure? One has to look and listen, not say yes or no. Look and listen without seeking for a yes or no, without seeking for anything. Is that possible? Seeking can be seen and felt. It does not need to catch one up. When it's seen and felt, it can quiet down, step out of the way. So then what's left? When there's no seeking left, in hearing the rain, is that an effort? Are we seeking to hear it, or is that just the dripping? In listening, feeling the breathing. It's just there, isn't it? Or is there someone who is making an effort to do it? We may think we're making an effort, but a moment ago we weren't even aware of it, and there was breathing going on. Things do happen on their own before we know it. Can one live with this not knowing even for an instant? We do, but we don't know it. We will end here for today.